I already pre-cut one of the sleeves, and I'm going to use a regular wafer paper. This wafer paper is Saracino brand, so this wafer paper is 0.27 millimeters, and I'll take my favorite scissors. And when you're cutting your wafer paper, I find that it works for up to 3 layers if you're using this 0.27 millimeter Saracino wafer paper. If you're working with thinner one, zero grade wafer paper, you can cut up to 4 layers at once. So what I have here is 3 layers of my wafer paper and my template, and I'm going to cut them together. And then we are going to wire, color, vein, and assemble our ivy branches. And as I always say during my classes, these templates are just guides and you can adjust them if you like. I'm not always cutting straight to the lines. Sometimes I like to play around and make them a little bit different, because then every time I cut my flower, I have a little bit more visual interest. And here's my template. And to next step, what we are going to do is wire our wafer paper. And if you worked with wafer paper before, you probably know the wafer paper has two sides. One side what is called bumpy side, and the other side what is called smooth side. For me personally, they are absolutely equal. You can use any side you prefer. For me personally, I prefer to use this bumpy side as my face side. So that's why I'm going to place my wafer paper shiny side up, and I will take my wire. I'm using 26 gauge wire for my leaves in this size. If you're going to make something smaller, like here on my template for this one, for example, I would probably use 28 or even 30 gauge wire, but for larger one, 26 works for me. And when you're working with wafer paper and you're applying your wire to your wafer paper, make sure that you're buying high quality floral wire. Preferably it should be paper covered or cloth covered, because if you're going to use just a regular wire, for example, your wire doesn't have any cover, it won't stick to your wafer paper, unfortunately. So find something like this one. This is PME. And I'm going to cut my wire in 4 pieces, and I will need just 2 because I have 2 leaves here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wafer paper glue, and wafer paper glue is basically melted wafer paper in water until it gets to this gel-like consistency. And I have all the recipes and guides in your class materials, so if you want to know the exact recipe, you can download those class materials. And I'm going to dip my wire in my wafer paper glue and then place it on the back side of my leaf. So this is shiny side and this is going to be my back side. And I'm going to press it down, making sure that I don't have any excess wafer paper glue. And now you can see it's already stuck together. This is my back side, this is my front side. And I will set it aside to dry. So again, I'm dipping my wire into my wafer paper glue, maybe about half in each dip, something like this, or 1 centimeter dip. And I'm placing my wire onto the back side of my wafer paper leaf, pressing it down, wiping the excess, and now my leaf is ready to be colored. Usually if you're working with wafer paper and you're making a lot of leaves, it is much better to wire or to attach wires to your leaves in advance and let them to dry for maybe about 10 minutes. So I'll bring my palette. I already played with colors, and today I'm going to use combination of these 2 colors, olive and cypress. I bought these 2 new shades of green that's why I'm playing around with them. And I'm going to use my AC tonic recipe, Asashkina Cakes tonic recipe, which is non-alcoholic wafer paper conditioner, and it consists of food grade glycerin. I use Wilton, you can use any vegetable food grade glycerin, and water. So this mixture is basically glycerin and water, and glycerin is a humectant, so it helps wafer paper to stay soft and pliable for a long period of time. And I'm going to use my conditioner, and you can see just watery, clear water-like mixture. And I'm going to take a few of these colors, both of them. This is Cyprus. I like this color, but it's a little bit too green to my liking. So I'm going to take just a little bit of this color and a touch of olive. And olive, on the other hand, is a little bit too brown. That's why I've used a mixture of both, but you can use any, doesn't matter, just the color you like. And you can see that I'm adjusting my mixture. I'm just playing around to see to the saturation I like. And you can take just regular paper towel and see if you like the color on a paper towel. Or you can take a scrap piece of wafer paper, it doesn't matter. It is not going to be a big difference. And to make my wafer paper and to color it, because I want this color to be a little bit darker than my usual light pink petals, I'm going to color this in 2 stages. So first I'm going to color my back side. So I'm taking my petal and placing it shiny side up and lightly brushing and coloring with my conditioner mixture and placing this aside to dry on my flower pot. And I'm turning this upside down because I find that it helps to prevent wafer paper from getting misshapen and warping and everything. So I'm just placing this aside to dry for a second. If your wafer paper starts to melt and you cannot control the amount of moisture, first what you can do is you can apply a little bit of cornstarch, and I'm going to do this the next step, or you can adjust the amount of glycerin in your mixture. Sometimes if you're in a really humid environment and wafer paper just starts to melt, you can use a little bit more of the glycerin in your wafer paper conditioner to help with the flexibility and like retain the moisture. And that's how it look like when it's dry. My leaves face side is still white and the other side is this green brownish color. And I'm checking on my leaves. My leaves are a little bit sticky and I want to start veining them in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of cornstarch before coloring and veining and applying the conditioner to the front side. And if you need to take a break or like you're working in sections, that's the great time to leave your leaves to dry before you're going to start with the next step. But we are going to do that right now. And to vein my wafer paper, I'm going to use this, I believe this is CK brand, but these are Ivy Leaves veiners. It is a set of veiners. They are 4, I think. So I'm going to use these 3 sizes, and let's start with the large one. I have my veiner here, and this is rubber veiner for its Ivy Leaf set, I believe. I love this veiner because you can see how deep these veins are. So now I have my leaf. I will bring my cornstarch just in case I need it. Make sure that I don't have too much on my brush. So something like this. And I will take my leaf, my wafer paper conditioner, and paint on the front side, coloring my wafer paper, making sure it is soft, but it's still not melting. So I'm checking on my wafer paper. I'm going to apply just a touch of cornstarch, place it in my veiner bumpy side up, press it down, and count till 5, because sometimes depends on your humidity and depends on the amount of conditioner you apply to your wafer paper. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer for the veins to transfer onto your wafer paper. Let's see what we have. And now I have my veined leaf, my ivy leaf. And I'll put it aside to dry, and we'll do the same to all my other leaves. Next step, what you can do if you want to add even more visual interest to your leaves, these are already dry. You can either use something like an edible marker, especially depends on the color you're working with. Mine is more brown colored-ish thing, so you can take an edible marker and you can emphasize your veins, and you can just paint on your wafer paper leaves like this. So your veins would be more pronounced, and you can paint or draw as much as you want. It's hard to do this upside down, but you get the idea. And depends on your color choices. You can obviously use brown or you can use green. But what I personally prefer to do is I prefer to use white gel color or something lighter, because then it makes even more obvious for this veins to show up. And I'm going to take my thin brush. This is a 00 brush. Take it on my load on my brush, and then take my leaf and paint all the veins I can see here. Even if you are not going to vein your wafer paper, you can still use this method and just emphasize all the texture in your leaves. I'm going to show you how to make vines and all those spirally things with just using floral tape. And what I need is I'm going to use half width floral tape. If you have a tape cutter or like tape shredder, you can use that. So I'm going to cut this floral tape in half widthwise, because I want my vines to be thin and delicate. Then what I'm going to do is take a smaller piece, this much, and I'm going to stretch my floral tape and just stick it to itself. So I'm stretching my floral tape, twisting and pulling up with my right hand to create this thin piece of floral tape. And I'm going to leave a little piece, maybe about an inch, to attach this to my vines. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a brush. You can take a pencil, something that you like the shape, and I'm going to twist my floral tape onto my brush like this, and to fix it I'm going to press it onto my brush to fix the shape. Now when I'm going to remove this, I have this twisty whiny thing to assemble my ivy. So to assemble my ivy, I'm going to take my leaves and see that the smallest one will go on top. This is the smallest one, and then something like this. If you need to add another wire, you can do that. For me, I always leave this tails a little bit longer, so just enough length for me to start assembling and putting this together. So I'm stretching my floral tape and attaching to my first leaf like that, placing my second leaf, leaving about an inch of the wire, or like 2 centimeters of my wires visible. Then I will take one of these twisty things, place them here and stretch together. Take another leaf. And for me, I find it's easier to just stack the sleeves like this before moving them around. Another leaf and another twisty thing. Another piece of floral tape. I know some of you told me that floral tape is not sticky enough. The main thing when working with floral tape, it is not going to stick to anything else except that it sticks to itself. So you need to stretch it to activate all the sticky parts in between your floral tape pieces. And then it should be good enough to work with. I have some of the floral tape that are the cheapest ones from Amazon, and they still work. So the goal is to stretch and then assemble everything together. So now I have my leaves and I'm going to assemble and play around, make my branch. Usually prefer to place one on one side and one on the other side, but it's up to you how you like your leaves or petals to go. And because Wafer paper is still soft and I have wires in all my leaves, I can even shape it. So if I want to bend my leaf, like you can see I did here, because I have my wires, I can do that. So here is my ivy branch. And the last step, if you want to make this ivy extra fancy, like super special, what you can do is you can take any pearl color, any pearl dust. This one is Saracen pearl powder. You can take a little bit on your finger. You can see how pearly and bright is that. And just touch your leaves to make it special. Especially if you're working on a flower arrangement for a wedding cake, sometimes adding or touching your leaves with pearl powder helps to bring everything together. And you can see I made this branch in a more mild or lighter shades, not bright green, not bold green, because for the wedding season, especially if you're going to use this as part of an arrangement for your flowers, I have my David Austin rose here. So if you're going to put everything together, you can see using not so bold and bright colors will work beautiful if you're going to place it on a cake. Even like small details like this make all the difference.